Hello, I wanted to post a little video today with regard to toxic masculinity. For those that know me, I'm a communication and relationship coach, and I run programs that are to help men to mentor boys. It's a project I wrote, but it's not one I will deliver, being I am a woman, not a man. And I work with women in abusive relationships to strengthen their self-belief, self-esteem, confidence, and resilience to leave behind abusive relationships. Those two bodies of work have come from my own life. For the first one, the mentoring project, came from everything I've experienced as a woman, as a female, around men, right from the youngest age I can remember. So being the daughter of a man, sister of three brothers, wife and mother of two boys. So it's masculinity and toxic masculinity are really hot topics for me always because of the work I do. But toxic masculinity has been kind of a buzzword of late, been in the press quite a lot. Well, I don't read the press, but I see online what's kind of going on out there. I believe that the Gillette ad has had quite a profound effect on quite a number of their male customers, probably most of their, the best a man can get and all of that. Most of their customers are going to be men. And there seems to have been a big backlash against that advertising campaign, presumably because many men are taking umbrage with it, that assuming that Gillette are saying, is this the best you can do? Which to me is very narrow-minded. I think it's a really brave advert and very topical and, important. It's an important message. So there are a couple of thoughts I've had about it, really. We tend to shy away from the subject, I think, in large numbers. Just let me say here and now that I think most women, certainly me, don't want to badmouth men. We love men. There's a really primal drive to have a good partner, assuming you're straight. If you're not straight, obviously it's going to be different. But there's a primal drive to have a relationship with a strong and sensitive man. I think probably most women will say that. So the backlash really has kind of brought this subject up for me as well, because I have seen so much negative masculinity in my life, and the consequences of it are life-changing for other people, as well as the man who is, being toxic in his masculinity. My understanding of it from all the work I've done over the years, and including the life I've led over the years, is that it's very much down to patriarchy, to the patriarchal model of masculinity, that men have to almost cut bits off of themselves, sensitivity, emotional intelligence, feeling. It's as if none of that's okay to be a man, and the damage it causes is huge. And it's not just on the men, it's on everybody else as well that comes into contact with them. For instance, the domestic abuse statistics are currently, every week, 2 women just in England and Wales are killed by a partner or an ex-partner. That's horrendous, and that's just a small microcosm of the global picture. And another statistic that's come into my awareness just in the last couple of weeks, which is statistically worse, is that 3 women a week. Now, the only thing I'm not sure about here, if this is just England and Wales or the whole of the UK, but it's a refuge statistic, so you can check it out online there. But 3 women a week die at their own hands just to escape domestic abuse. And as far as the latest refuge film, there's a little film online, you can find that, says that there is no legal repercussion for the man who is abusing the woman who kills herself just to escape the hell that she's living with a man who is abusive. So it's a really important subject for people who are clued into what's going on out there. But there's something else I want to share, which is there are many, many reasons why I do the work I do, and why, my compassion is huge for men. Even the perpetrators of crime, I feel so sad for them that they're so desperately battered by this system of patriarchy. And I think that's only just beginning to be talked about, as far as my awareness goes anyway. Because again, talking about stuff that matters, like feelings and what have you, and how this is affecting me as a man, talking from a man's perspective, of course, it's just not been the done thing. And it's great to see more men's groups opening around the country and around the world, where men will come together and talk real. I mean, thank God for that. But one of the things that has troubled me absolutely the most, and the thing that triggered me to set up the mentoring initiative that I run, which was about getting men more involved in mentoring teenage boys and teaching through activities positive masculine characteristics and the ability to talk to one another and share and be real, is the impact on a mother's sons and the impact on a mother. As I mentioned, I've got 2 sons, and there have been instances where, my sons, I believe, are pretty emotionally intelligent, and I can recall things that have happened to them that have crucified me for them. The pain it brings to see that at age around 13 plus, teenage age group, boys tend to start pulling away from their mothers somewhat, and most mothers aren't aware that this is going to happen, and it's quite a culture shock when it does, because that formerly close and affectionate, playful relationship you may have had suddenly starts to change, and boys tend to get a bit morose and maybe a bit mean, even in that need to cut ties somewhat with the feminine identity, if you like. And gravitate more towards their peers and the men in their lives. And there are so many young men that don't have men in their lives, or don't have positive men in their lives to role model positive masculinity. And some of the things I've seen as a mum are, when that's been happening in my life, I've been full of fear. I'm my sons are 26 and 29 as I record this. But when they were teenagers, these things that, my younger son mugged in the street, had a phone taken off him. He was such a sweet teenager, and I'm still sweet, obviously, he's my baby, but it was awful seeing that, that hardness of the world come and attack him like that. It was so distressing. My older son was hit in the street by somebody that was known to him, who was old enough to be his dad, with a wicked bottle. These large bottles that are not the standard size, but big bottles. By all accounts, my son and his friend were walking behind the friend's the friend's father. They'd just come out from the shop, and he was holding these bottles, and they were laughing between themselves, and for some reason, known only to the guy that did this, he turned around and hit my son right in the face with this bottle, the bottom of this bottle, and smashed all his teeth. His 2 front teeth were like this, cut in half right across the middle. His lips were absolutely lacerated, and the first I knew of this, he came charging home, barged in the house. I came running to see what the commotion was about. My son had run straight into the bathroom, which was downstairs where we lived at the time, and sat on the side of the bath, or was looking in the mirror, actually seeing what had happened to his face. His lips were all fat and swollen and cut to bits, and blood was pouring down his face. The rest of his face was as white as I've ever seen anybody's face. He was clearly in shock, and so was I, seeing that. It was so distressing to me to see my son in that shape, and trying to find out what happened and calm him down. And turned out that the explanation I just gave, that's what happened to him. I want to say that I have no bitterness or any desire for retribution in sharing this story. My son is still friends with the lad. He was a lovely lad then, and I'm sure he's a lovely lad now. I've met him once or twice since. I mean, they're both grown up now. I think they did fall apart for a little while because of what happened. But the thing that was so shocking to me, or that was most shocking to me as a mother, was that when you let go of your sons because you have to, and you're letting them go out into the world and make their way separate from you, it's so terrifying because you know how hard the world can be. Many women, I mean, I'm very conscious of this because of the work that I do. You know how hard the masculine can be, or the toxic masculinity specifically, and what dangers there are. I know a friend whose daughter is her daughter's son was also mugged in the street at knife point, as I understand it, by a group of young lads, I presume. And that's terrifying because you know of the violence, you know how much of it goes on. I mean, all the stabbings that are going on in London and, well, all over the place, really, of young men doing that. It's so frightening, especially if you've got sons. And I'm sure there are a myriad of problems that you would encounter if you were a mother of daughters or both as well. It's the violence more than anything that's so frightening, especially if your sons are emotionally intelligent, as I believe both of mine are. What my issue is patriarchy. I believe that all of this toxic masculinity thing comes from patriarchy. It's a terrible rule for life that totally cuts off all of the things that give life meaning, all of the love and the sensitivity and the sweetness, the compassion and all of that. It's as if it suddenly becomes, you can't do that anymore. It's not allowed. You can't, there was somebody made a video just after the Gillette ad, a youngish man, and he was saying, you teach your sons that, he's going to get the shit kicked out of him. And I see that. I see why he's afraid of that, of the message to be more in touch with feelings. But it's such a tragedy for everybody to be living by this patriarchal conditioning, because for women, millions of women around the world are being beaten. Some are being murdered by men who are in this toxic masculinity thing. Children are being killed. Children are being trafficked and sexually exploited and even in high places by all accounts. And men themselves are being shut down from something that's so meaningful in life for all of us, as well as men themselves. So it's a terrible thing, the patriarchy, because it's all out of balance. We don't have an equal match of masculine and feminine, and all of women have the masculine in them, and all of men have the feminine in them. But we all have to cut it off because it's not convenient. It's not the done thing, because the whole patriarchal system is about control. That's a whole other discussion. But what I want to say, the reason for making this video really is because we have to keep pressing forward with this discussion. We can't be bullied by the opposition of men who are saying, sorry, we're not going to buy your razors anymore. We've been customers through 2 generations and we're going. We cannot be bullied by that. We have to keep pressing forward and address this negative masculinity thing, because it's so incredibly dangerous on so many levels. And women, I think, certainly me and most people I know, we don't hate men. We really don't. And we don't blame men for so many things that society kind of likes us to do, to be divided. What we want is whole men, and men want wholeness as well. It's not just women that want that. And our children need that. Our children need to know that it's okay to be emotional. I mean, we are emotional creatures. It's as simple as that. We need attachment. We need to love one another. We need to be loved. It's just part of human nature. We live in groups. That's the way humans thrive. So it's just such an important discussion, and that's really why I wanted to record this, so that it will keep the discussion going. It's really so important. We need men to come to the table too. We must bring men back to the table to stand up to the patriarchy and to other men who are still too caught up in it to see what's going on, too caught up in it to see the damage being done even to themselves. So it's a really, really important discussion for all of us to move forward in healthy ways and raise our children in healthy ways. So I'd just like to finish there and say, please engage with the video. I would love to hear your comments. If you want to comment on the YouTube channel, that's great. If you want to comment in the threads where this is posted, please do, because it's such an important discussion. We cannot let it drop. And that's it from me for the time being. Anyway, thank you for listening and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.